a lot of information out there that leads a person to believe that they could engage in mediocre behaviors and somehow have magical, exceptional outcomes. And that's not been my experience in life. The things that worked best for me are things that I focused on for a sustained period of time. And
yeah, I would say that you got to remember why you're doing it and what your goal is, right? That's something to keep resetting, I think, all the time, right? Why am I doing this? What do I want?
If you don't have $1 million yet, you're living a much lesser life than what could be easily available to you with the right guidance. My head coach has freed up a few spots in his calendar to hold one-on-one strategy calls with the highest quality applicants. If you're doing well already and you're looking to accelerate your momentum and do even better, click the link in the description now and apply for your strategy session. More at the end of this video.
today I have the pleasure to chat with Paul Felder. Paul was in the UFC forever. He's a top contender, one of the top guys in his weight division for something like a decade. How long were you over there?
Yeah, I think 8 years.
8 years.
Yeah.
Still a commentator over there, one of the well-known commentators from UFC that lived that life himself, and you see a lot of nuance and detail that other people just wouldn't see. That a person who hasn't had your experiences and dealt with the grit and details, just couldn't see things the way that you do. And also you had an acting background or communications background that helped prepare you for your current announcing job and some of the acting things that you've recently been involved in too.
Yeah.
So not only a tough guy, but also a smart guy and a good actor.
Yeah, I think it transitioned well going into the commentating side of things, right? Because I think one of the reasons I got the opportunity to begin with is they like how I handled myself for interviews post-fight, for build-up and media scrums and things like that. They're like, all right, this dude is obviously tough, gets covered in blood, goes out there and fights like a maniac, but then when we talk to him, he's able to be clear in his, post-fight interviews and intelligent and make good analysis. So I think that's why ultimately they looked at me for Dana White's Contender Series, which is kind of how the ball got rolling, because I got called. I was in the middle of a camp for a fight with Stevie Ray, and they're like, you need to come out to California, watch a UFC event live while it's in Singapore. So it was like 3 a.m. for us over there in LA, and we had to do like a mock call of it, and I got paired up with different play-by-play guys. They were auditioning as well for the job. Flew back to Milwaukee where I was doing camp, and then like a week later I found out I got the job. I had to fly from my fight in Scotland the next day to Vegas to call the fights in 2 days.
Wow. So yeah, a lot of prep time there.
Crazy. Yeah, I was prepping on
in the middle
plane,
of your, in
on
your
this
fight
tiny
camp.
little plane on the way back from Scotland. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I traveled everywhere. I went to 66 countries, I think, 65, 66 countries over the years, and I understand that jet lag better than most people do. I got comfortable. I don't mean to change the topic. We'll go right back to it, but I was flying so much that I just, I didn't really have like a normal circadian rhythm.
No.
So I just felt comfortable, like wherever I was, I'm just like, all right, here I am. And,
yeah, you probably travel so much that eventually it's like your body will just be like, we're going to sleep whenever we're going to sleep.
Yep.
Because
where's the gym? Where's the food? And get the essential life pieces. And
finding that gym is key, right? Getting to a city, no matter where you are in the world, if you can get something in, go outside, get in the sunshine a little bit is my whole thing with when we travel. It's like, get outside, do something right away. Don't just sit around in your hotel room, because then you're just going to be a zombie for the rest of the time.
I found when, the worst flights for me, I was flying in and out of Chicago a lot. So the harder flights, you mentioned Singapore. If I got to go to Singapore, that's a 30-hour adventure that you have to fly to, on my airline, you'd end up in San Francisco or LA for, stopover, or you could stop over at Narita in Japan. And I make sure, I'm chubby right now, and you don't have the context for that. But at that time in my life, from like age 33 to 40, I was making sure that I was hitting weights pretty aggressively, like 4 days a week, 4 days a week, 4 days a week, and I didn't give a shit. I never had an excuse for that. It was like a religion that there's. If I had a headache, if I had a tummy ache, whatever, so okay, bring your headache to the gym.
Lift it out.
Yeah, take your tummy ache to the gym. So I'd hit the gym, take a shower, go fly to Singapore. And exactly what you said to reset the clock is, go get in the sun for a minute, reset your clock a little bit, get yourself to the gym.
They say something about like touching the grass. I saw some strange thing about like actually getting on the terrain of where you're at helps, but I don't know if that was a little bit of just hearsay or what, but I've never tried that. We're actually like touching the ground. It's supposed to be beneficial.
I don't know about that one. Maybe I'll try it in the second half of my life.
There you go.
To finish that the thought of it, the gyms got taken away in 2020. The gyms closed down for your health.
Yeah.
For your health, they took the gyms away. I was very focused on money and finance. I did exceptionally well in the stock market and in business during that time. That I made a lot of money in real estate investments in a couple of years there. I made a lot of money in the stock market. I built a different business that was more appropriate for those times. That did very well. But yeah, in the meantime, I gained 40-something pounds, and was losing muscle mass at the same time. So I wasn't happy about that. So I'm 50% revived from there. That I lost about 30 pounds of fat and gained about 10 pounds of muscle in the last 7 months.
There you go.
I'm fixing, turning that situation around. But it sure helps when you have those habits in place that you have the structure and habits. Like it's gym day, and for me that's an appetite suppressant and keeps me mindful of calories or my physical condition.
Keeps your that furnace burning too. You know what I mean? You can afford to eat a little bit if you're obviously going and getting that work in. So that helps everything.
You've told me your version that you had to find a new obsession, that you didn't want to continue your professional fighting career, that you're reaching that time in life, and so you developed a new obsession in triathlons.
Yeah. So towards the end, I still wasn't fully retired, and I started to kind of just explore it via YouTube. I stumbled upon this guy that's a buddy of mine now, who's one of the best pros, this guy Lionel Sanders, I saw a lot of myself in him in a different sport, and I got really fascinated with just how hard. I knew nothing about that sport. Like I knew nothing about triathlon whatsoever. I knew what it was. I knew you swam, I knew you biked, I knew you ran. I didn't know the distances. I knew what an Ironman was. I didn't know much more than that, and it started obsessing over just seeing how insane these workouts were, how far these guys could push themselves. And coming from a sport in MMA where we push ourselves to those same limits in a lot of different ways, right? Grappling, you feel like you're drowning sometimes, pushing through that pain of getting hit in fights. And now I found this other sport where I was like, all right, well, I can't get punched and kicked for the rest of my life. I know there's a cap to how far I can do this. So once I found that, I was like, well, I was talking to my fiance, and I was like, I'm going to do this. Like, I'm going to get into that. I'm going to sign up for a race. Started talking to the guy Lionel. Turns out he's a big MMA fan. So we started going back and forth, and I started dabbling in it a little bit, signed up for a race, and the rest has been nonstop. Now I'm trying to get out there and get some serious times. Like I trained for this about as dedicated as I did when I was training for professional fights. And I'm not making any money doing this stuff, unfortunately, but it fills that void because like we were talking about, I couldn't just do it and be like, oh, I'll do a race once a year and get out there and kind of trot across the finish line. For me, it's like, no, I want to win the thing. You know what I mean? Like I want to get to a point where I am winning these races. I want to touch that tape at least one time in my life. So that's the new obsession, and it's going well. Today I ran for an hour and 20 minutes up in crazy hills in Henderson, and then did 3,500 yard swim. So
3,500 yards. It's 2 miles of swimming.
Yeah, just about, probably a little under 2 miles.
Wow.
But
it's quite an adventure.
It's fun. It's fun. And it gets all three of those minds, right? You got, grappling, striking, boxing, jiu-jitsu, and MMA. So triathlon was kind of the perfect fix for me because there's multiple things that I've got to be studying that I've got to be good at. So.
But what are the distances in like the official, the big name triathlons? I know a marathon, I believe, is 26.2 miles.
Yeah.
And that's as far as I know. So what are the other components in there?
So a full distance Ironman is 2.4 mile swim, a 112 mile bike, and then a marathon.
Well, I mean, I could do a 40-mile bike ride.
Yeah,
that's about what I'm good for.
So
if I didn't do the other things, I could do about 40 miles on the bike.
Then there's a half distance, which is literally half of all that. So 1.2, 56, and then a half marathon. And that's what I've been doing a lot of. And that's not as grueling in far as just that kind of long distance endurance, but it's a lot faster. And you can you're just under sprinting damn near that whole thing. Like when I run, the best time I've gotten from my run so far, and it's nothing compared to the best, but I've done a 1:32 off of a 56-mile bike, so that's like a 7-minute pace for half marathons. But these guys are running them like 5:09 per mile, doing like 1:08 for a half marathon, which is insane if anybody knows any.
So what is the time then, for the higher level people, maybe not best in the world, but to be to fit into that group or be able to finish a full triathlon, this is quite a lengthy endeavor.
Yeah. So I think I'm at the point where I'm amongst the top guys in my group and bordering on I'm almost to the elite guys. So I think in another year I can be like top 3 in my age group. If it's a smaller race, I can win. But I mean, the pros for a 70.3 for a half distance are doing that in anywhere from 3 hours and 45 minutes to 4 hours, like just over 4 hours. So I mean, it's incredible the
So
speeds.
it's, 8 hour. 8
and then
hours
the full
of
distance
extreme-
is like they do it in around 8 hours.
8
Now they're
hours of
coming in
extreme
under 8
activity.
hours, like 7:45 for all that for 2.4, 112, and then a marathon. They're running like 240 for a marathon. That's a good marathon for anybody. Yet
Yeah,
alone doing it off of a crazy bike.
I'm going to have to work on my cardio for at least
You
a
got to
couple
check it
weeks
out, man.
first.
I'm telling you, if you watch the right videos on this stuff, you can see why. I think it's an underappreciated sport. I can see why it's hard to get the mainstream people involved in it, because it's hard to watch. It's one of those sports that's more exciting to be involved in. So people are trying to figure out a way, how can they make it a little bit more accessible? But I think it's got a little bit of time still before it's it's MMA is like immediate, right? I mean, we're fist fighting in a cage. That is exciting right then and there. Triathlon's kind of an investment.
Yeah, that's a hell of an adventure. I'm going to have to work on my cardio for at least 2 weeks before it.
Yeah, well, we'll get you in a sprint distance.
Maybe longer.
We'll get you in a sprint distance, much shorter, much shorter.
I have good endurance. I think it was partially, I don't know, maybe you have some insight to this, but I have good psychological endurance that I can work, if necessary or when there's the right opportunity. I don't think anything will work on 14 or 16 hour days consistently for weeks or months. I've done that, and if there's a good reward for it, I've done that, and
Right.
I haven't been resentful of it. Or I'd remind myself when you feel a little resentful, I'd be like, yeah, but if you do that for a period of time, you do whatever the hell you want to with the rest of your life, and that model worked for me. So
Yeah.
I have good endurance for things that I could stay focused or keep my body doing things. But I never thought of myself as I'm not necessarily fast. I never
Right.
thought of myself that way. Or even in I've taken up MMA training just recently. I'm nowhere near the level of skill set that you would have. But all of my coaches are former world champions or current world champions. A couple of them. My main coaches are Jake Shields for MMA and Paulie Malignaggi, if you know Paulie
There you go.
from
Yeah.
boxing.
Yeah.
So
Jake's is. I mean,
yeah.
stud.
So those guys come train with me every 4 weeks. We'll spend about 10 hours of training time every 4 weeks.
Nice.
They come fly to me, and I was so annoyed that the gym got taken away from me that I built my own weight training facility.
That's the way to do it.
I think
You
in
can.
some parts it's better.
Yeah.
The weight
it's
part
better.
is better than the PI is.
Yeah,
I know that's
I'll bet.
a bold thing to say, but it's pretty nice. And then I built separate wrestling room, boxing room, etc.
nice,
So
man.
it's about 3,000 feet of exercise space as part of a 10,000
It's like its
foot
own,
facility.
is it own little warehouse or something?
No, I had an office/studio that's total is about 10,000 feet, and then this is about 3,000 feet of it is workout space.
That's awesome.
Now. So anyway, Jake comes over. We've been putting in we'll put in about 10 hours in 3 days time. Paulie comes over. We'll put in about 10 hours in 3 days time, and then in between I've had numerous other fighters, the guys that come over. So Derek Brunson just left yesterday. We've been together the last 3 days. Tito Ortiz has been over, Chuck Liddell's been over, Mike Chandler's been over, Andre was over a couple weeks ago.
That dude's
so
a
on,
freak
so on,
athlete
so on.
right
So,
there, man. Did you lift with him too?
No, we weren't really lifting weights. No, Derek Brunson and I were hitting weights on on Tuesday together. We were hitting weights together.
Was he blonde Brunson or regular Brunson?
Well, he's shaved head Brunson at the moment. He's shaved head Brunson at the moment, but I think he's open-minded to go.
Yeah, I think blonde Brunson is like undefeated or something. He's
Well, he won 5 fights in a row.
Yeah.
His blonde Brunson went 5 fights undefeated, and the 6th one didn't quite go his way. But
5-1 ain't bad.
I'd take 5 of one. It's a better ratio than I'm ever going to have in your sport.
So.
But even in doing the point I was getting to, even in doing those things, I feel good for endurance things. Like I like hiking, I like long distance bicycling. I'm good for things like that. I never had I don't know, I don't have an inclination, or it doesn't feel like my body is excited either to do like, sprinting or some,
Yeah.
super high intensity type something. So I'm good for endurance.
Yeah.
I have good endurance for a lot of things.
Well, the
but-
longer distances, that's what it's more about. It's not even about speed at that point. I mean, the top people, obviously, it's always about speed. But for anybody like us who's just trying to finish those things, it's just about here. I'm telling you, that's where, if you already have that, that's a big key for the racing. I can tell you that, because your mind at some point during that race is going to say, I don't want to do this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I doing this? It's stupid. And so having a strong mind for endurance training is key.
I think that's a great thing for us to chat about a bit. That the people that watch me, the people that care about my YouTube, or people that become clients, are they're interested in entrepreneurship. They're already good at something, and they want to be better in some area of business. They want to learn about entrepreneurship. That maybe they built a good career. They might have went to the right schools. They might have
Right.
worked hard and got good grades, and then they're in the most lonely and depressive place in the world called LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And they're thinking like, man, like I spent my whole life so far doing all the right things to end
And
up in
now-
this spot that, getting a job that maybe they're underappreciated, or they're probably not living to their full potential, So they'd like my help with, understanding at least how to get a raise or a promotion at that job and
Right.
be at the top of an industry. Or most of them want, secondary incomes through entrepreneurship,
Yeah.
and ultimately want to learn more about investing in real estate, stock market. So you can live off of your investments instead of your labor.
Yeah, of course.
So when I think about a guy who said some of your life experiences, or the way that I lived my life, there's plenty of times that I feel like not doing something.
Yeah.
And at least twice a week I wake up and maybe I slept 3 hours and it's time for boxing.
Yeah.
And my brain says I don't feel like
Yeah.
boxing right now. And then about 1 second later I say, well, the success gods don't give a shit what I feel
Yeah.
like.
Fact.
How have you thought about that? You just said it in terms of even in your leisure time, you're doing things that maybe
Yeah.
you don't want to in real time, but that's not a sufficient reason to quit.
Yeah. No, I've always been pretty good at that, right? Like getting my ass in gear basically when you don't want to. I've kind of pride myself on that, especially through the fighting career. It was the same way. My goal was to always work harder than my opponent. I know we all say that, but I really tried. I know a lot of guys talk a good game, but I would bust my ass and try to be in the absolute best shape. And now I carry that into this. It's like I'm retired from fighting. I have this job doing commentary, which is going well with the UFC. I could easily just chill, study fights, sit at home, but it's just not enough, right? I feel like I'm one of those people. I've got to be doing something. And trust me, there are days, especially now, like today, I'm traveling just on Thursday night, got in at like 9 o'clock, got to the hotel, sure didn't feel like waking up from last night and getting my ass in gear, but met my buddy Justin, who's a high level guy out here, went and ran this crazy trail by his house. And then it's like, oh man, do I want to wait? I was going to wait to do the swim after we did our interview. I was like, if you wait, you know damn well that by the time I'm done, I'm not going to want to do it. So I got my ass in gear, got over to the pool, did that workout, and now I'm here, and now I got the rest of my day, kind of like what you're talking about, where now I can do this, I can chill, I have nothing on my mind. So I've always kind of tried to do that, where I just get the shit that needs to get done, and then enjoy.
I just flew here last night myself, and a anecdotal introduction that I had yesterday, that I'm sitting on the jet, I'm in first class. I never flew in first class until I was older, but in my late 30s, I thought for the amount I was flying, I was always frugal, so I'd buy economy tickets. Even I had the money, I could buy whatever I wanted, but it was
Yeah.
And then I thought to myself, like, wait a minute, how much would it cost you to sit in first class for every flight? And then the answer was 40 something, 50 grand a year. And like, are you telling me in a year's time you couldn't figure out how to make an extra 50 grand
Yeah.
if you were better rested, more comfortable? And then I laughed at myself, and I never bought an economy ticket since then. But I digress. The fella sitting next to me, he's I'm working on my phone, I'm texting, but working for me in this context is more like reading stock market information. So
Right.
I was reading a quarterly statement. I was looking at some stock market things. I was texting and setting some schedules with training schedule for fighting and a couple business things. But this kid next to me, he's he's in his early 30s, which just means I'm old now, So this kid next to me in his early 30s, he's got his suit on, and he's working, frantically and nonstop from the moment he sat down on the jet. He's on his phone, he's on his laptop, he's, work, and there's a nervous cadence to it,
Tenseness to him.
And the flight attendant says to him, 3 hours into the flight attendant says, I hope you get to relax in Vegas, and all you've done is work, and hope you have a good vacation, and so on and so on. And I think that made him even more uncomfortable. There was a cognitive dissonance between what he knows he had to get done versus what he might emotionally want to do.
Yeah.
So that's my interpretation of the situation. And I mentioned we haven't said a word to each other for 3 hours, and I said to him, I said, never take advice from somebody that doesn't have your goals. If they don't have the same goals as you do, don't worry about their opinion about what you're doing. I said, if you spent 10, 15 years working the way you are, you'll do whatever the hell you want to with the rest of your life.
Yeah.
If you're any good at what you do.
Yeah.
And he thanked me numerous times that, and my interpretation of that, we didn't even have a conversation, that we're both happy enough to do our own thing, but he's, thank you so much. And I think the pressure that he's feeling is that he probably has other people around him telling him, chill out a bit more or relax a bit more. And he went to, I don't need to say a lot about him, but he went to an Ivy League school. He's a private equity guy. And, in that industry, if you're,
stressful.
You can make a lot. Yeah, it is stressful.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to tolerate that stress, then somebody else is happy to.
Yeah.
And they'll take that income, and they'll take the future investment opportunity.
The whole time. Yeah.
Yeah, was your profession stressful? Is professional fighting, is that stressful?
Yeah, right. Anything at the highest level, right? It should be a little bit.
But if you don't want to do that work, somebody else is going to be happy to come in there and fill your spot in the top 10.
Yeah, big time.
Same thing, And I think there's this fantasy land out there that the internet propagates this nonsense that you could just chill your way to success.
Yeah.
You could sit around and daydream about, they call that manifestation, I guess.
Yeah.
You could sit around and daydream.
Just wish for it really hard.
Yeah. And magically shit's going to happen. And I'm not against that daydream. I do a lot of visualization things.
Right, of course.
But, I'm visualizing things after you already did the work.
Yeah.
You got to go do the work, too.
Yeah.
You got to go do the work, too.
That's what nobody wants to do.
Yeah.
And even these kids, I'm not, but I mean, Instagram, Twitter, it's easy to just say whatever you want and be whatever but you're not. You're just that guy doing this until you get your ass out there and actually do something. So even these young kids, man, they've got to also put in the work, to be a good fighter. A lot of these kids think that they can just, I'll call out so-and-so, I'll talk this, I'll make myself a personality. It's like the guys that got to the very top had the personality, but also the skills and the work ethic. And if they didn't, they fell off pretty quick. So you see the same thing in fighting. But as far as somebody wanting your spot, that is for sure true in the UFC, right? You get that spot. If you complain, I don't want to fight this guy, I don't want to do that. There are a million kids who are sitting at home every day wanting to be in that octagon. So and same with those kids, those young professionals like that, where it's like, man, anybody wants that job. You're making that money, you have the potential to make a lot more money. They want that slot.
In your profession, you have people that, those kids you talk about, they literally been watching you, literally. And they look up to you to some way, but then some other way they think, I could be better than that guy.
Yeah.
There's that part of their brain too. And they're studying your tapes and studying your movements and studying your psychology. And I'm sure there's an unrelenting pace there that it's a tough gig.
Yeah, it's just a tough community nowadays, right? Anything you do, you're under scrutiny. So it's important, to think that, you don't take advice from somebody that doesn't have the same goals. It's just something that I've always had to kind of remind myself, because I will catch myself letting that get me down. Somebody says something, I don't know who that person is. Why am I letting that bother me? So that's been a big step in my career, especially post-fighting, where people say stuff now and I can't go back it up in the cage. I'll show them and I'll go kick somebody's butt, right? I can't do that anymore. So now I got to just let that trash talk kind of go away. Because if I do kick somebody's butt, I'm probably getting in trouble for it at this point.
What's a favorite comment from your haters or detractors?
Dude. I could probably open my phone and find 100 of them right now. Well, the one guy recently, I said some things about Charles Oliveira, and it just took people from the grave out of nowhere to come after me. And the one guy's like, "Who are you to even talk about Charles? You have no right. You haven't done anything in your career." And then right under it, one of my teammates wrote, "He literally knocked him out."
Yeah, I thought
he literally
one of your
knocked him
fights.
out. What are you talking about?
I know
And,
Charles
yeah.
only has maybe his 8 or something losses, but I thought you were one of the guys that beat Charles.
I mean, and since me, he has gone on a tear. So if anything, I've helped him by giving him that last loss. I've motivated him to get himself better, and my God, he has.
Well, he's done amazing. You know, Mike Chandler is a friend of mine, and you seen how that worked out. That was a back and forth, and then I was in the second row at the Gagey fight that Charles recently had, and he looks strong. You know, Chandler's tough as hell. Gagey's tough as hell.
Tony, Gaethje, and Chandler all in the span of like the last year and a half or 2 years. I mean,
yeah, I wouldn't even say that. He's made me a fan. Charles Oliveira we don't even speak the same language. I don't know what the hell he's saying.
Yep.
But he's made me a fan. That he's been so dominant that I think I'm not a fan of anybody, but I was very impressed that that guy's he's tough as hell, very talented.
Yeah, he really turned it around. He's got a swag about him now too, and like everybody thinks that I hate him because you say one critical thing about somebody anymore, and you hate somebody or you're jealous of somebody. That's the big one everybody was coming at me with, was that I was jealous that I'm not the champ and he is. It's like, look, we went in 2 different paths. There's nothing I can do about that. I beat him and I went up and it didn't work out for me. He took the long road and got there. But now I'm doing commentary and doing all these other things. So it's like, am I jealous? Man, I have a window I have multiple windows that kind of opened where if I was just fighting, that's all I had. So to me, it's a blessing in disguise, really, that things started to trickle out in the fight game, and I rode the wave pretty well, I think.
I get a few million followers on social media, and then when I look at comments, then I see of the hater comments, the number one is Derek, you're fat, and good thing I don't run a fitness channel.
Yeah.
Good thing I don't give people dietary advice.
Yeah.
It's a good thing that's not the niche that I selected. And then, other ones will be along the lines of, this person or this person is richer than you. So I never said I needed to be the richest person in the world. If you've seen how I grew up, I could never imagine having 20% of my current financial circumstances. It would be unimaginable,
Yeah.
And, and I'm only 43. I just turned 43, so I got some
Still
time
young.
left to, I bet I could find a way to make a few more dollars before I die. But yeah, I think about some of those things like, the public, or it's not the public. It's like a few imbeciles in the public.
Yeah. It's a very small group, but they're loud.
They want to hold you to a standard that you yourself never agreed to. That you never. They want to hold you to goals that you've never set.
Yeah.
That you didn't. I'm not jealous if someone makes more money than me. I'm not mad if somebody has more money than me.
No, there's always, that's the thing, right? Unless you are literally the one guy that's the richest guy in the world, but that's always going to change. There's always going to be somebody else. So to bring that up to people, it's like, it doesn't make sense.
Have you ever met a hater doing better than you?
Exactly. No.
There's a few thoughts that I have about that. That when I see a hater comment, or when somebody says, one of my friends can be just, I'm sincerely not bothered much. Usually I giggle a little bit, or either I think nothing of it at all because it's just the same repetitive something that you were numb to a long time ago, or if there's a creative one, I'm like, good thing I didn't declare myself a fitness model. But I think about that. Like a hater is somebody that if they had any talent, they'd be doing something. They wouldn't have time to make nasty comments on the internet.
Yeah.
I don't have time to make nasty comments on the internet. I doubt when you had some of the the highlights of your career, the highlight moments in your career. Probably I didn't watch all your fights, but I never seen a clip of you talking to Joe Rogan in the meetings. Like, I can't wait to go home and hate on some people on the internet.
Can't wait to get my phone out and just start tweeting some nonsense at people. That's what I look forward to.
I don't recall the time where I was ever hated on by somebody who was more successful than me.
I have one guy recently and again, who knows how true it is, right? It was this Brazilian guy, and he's telling me about all these businesses he runs. And I'm like, bro, and you still are on here doing this. So what does that say about you? Even if you are somewhat successful, there's something deep inside you that's miserable at what you're doing because you still took the time to write this thing to me whilst running successful businesses. That's even sadder in my opinion. I get the guy who's on the couch who got handed a rough, way of life and is just mad at the world. No excuses, but I can at least see where that person's coming from. But if you're running a construction company and raising for charities, which was on his Instagram, it's like, and you still have the time to do this, to say this to somebody? I think it's pathetic. It's pathetic. I was like, well, then go spend time running I was like, what's your phone number? Let me call you and I want to tell you how crappy of a job I think you're doing. That's the equivalent to these guys. And I say it to them all the time. It's like, where do you work? I want to come in. And just be like, man, you absolutely suck at working on that computer right now. Look at you. You got glasses on? Sweet glasses. What's that wristwatch? How much was that watch? I'll bet somebody's got a more expensive watch than that. It's basically what these guys are doing. On Twitter, though, so it's okay. Sorry, that's my rant for the day. I hate them.
I don't go to your job and tell you how to flip those burgers. Don't worry about telling me how to do my job. Don't worry about Paul. Don't tell us Paul how to do his job. We don't tell you how to flip your burgers.
Don't call us fat. I don't like that.
Summary statement, or maybe any of that is, I think the number one thing a hater hates is themselves.
Yeah, it's got to be something in them.
Somewhere in their head. I don't think they're like entirely incompetence. I think that they're people that, when they choose an enemy, which is really somebody they admire that they'd like to poke a little bit, it generally means, and I think this is fair. I don't think it's like a humorous statement. I think it's like an objectively true statement that like they've chosen someone that it's irritating them, probably because they see in themselves, if they would have worked hard, they might have been able to do what you did.
Yeah.
But they never had the same, they didn't have the willpower to make themselves do it. They couldn't tolerate all the tough times. They wouldn't have the psychological resilience.
Yeah.
But they can see some part of themselves or their former potential self that's like, man, I could have done pretty good at that myself, and therefore that guy,
Yeah. That's like most of them. There's probably like the 1% that there's just something about me they just don't like my face, maybe. I don't know.
That's fine. Maybe they don't like my hair. That's fine.
I like screw those guys. I can't help that. This is the face I got given. I'm stuck with it. Until I get my nose fixed eventually, maybe if I straighten it back out a little bit. But that's it. Hey,
man, if all my investments go bad, if all my real estate investments go bad, and if my businesses fail, and all my stocks go bankrupt, if I lose $50 million, then I'll be a broke bitch like you. And
yeah, there you go.
At least I got a modeling career I can fall back on. At least I can fall back on my modeling career.
Yeah.
And if not, I'll start a band, perhaps.
Oh my God. Yeah. There you go.
It just 2021. Late 2021. I started playing around with MMA stuff. I asked Paulie, if he'd take time to come help me with boxing, and Paulie told me from the beginning, he was a great boxer. He's a world champion in 2 weight divisions. But he's a great commentator.
Yeah.
But so he sees all those little details. I mean, he sees like little. He's not known to be like a hard hitter. He was a volume guy.
Volume guy, speed.
But he sees little details and nuances that people just don't see, which I think makes him a great commentator. But anyway, I asked Paulie to help me with boxing, and he's like, Derek, like I never trained anybody in my life. I never been a coach. I never been a trainer. I said, well, you are a multi-time world champion, and I bet there's a few things you know about boxing that I could learn. I bet there's a few things you could teach me. I'm coachable, let's try it. So we've been working together really well since then. The first couple of months were probably rough. After that, it turned out great. Jake also, Jake's working with me for about the same time. I think they started the same month together. When I first started, my cardio was so shit that in a minute I was really out of breath in a minute. Now you just talked about like these triathlons of like 8 hours of intense cardio. So I had about 1 minute of intense cardio at that time, and now I can have now I could have, if I control the pace, I can do very well for sustained periods of time.
Yeah.
But if it's like intense movement, like 3 minutes is a long time.
Yeah.
And for jiu-jitsu, wrestling, grappling stuff. That's about where my cardio is at the moment, which is a lot better because my skill set's tremendously better from where I started, And my cardio is 3 times what it was. So I feel like I've made huge improvements.
Well, that's what's good
I
about
still got
early
a lot
on
to do.
in your training too, is right? Is you see those improvements pretty fast. It's an exciting time to be doing martial arts, right? Is that first year or so? It's like, oh wow, you see your gains coming quick.
I know the diminishing returns. I'm already seeing some diminishing returns, but and not to digress, but I have a good map in my head now of boxing / kickboxing to takedowns and
Right.
various grappling and jiu-jitsu things. So I still have plenty to learn, but when Derek said that basically I have a skill set. A lot of guys that go to the gym for 4 years. In about 4 years' time, they get what I've done in about 7 months.
Yeah, well,
but I
exactly.
have amazing coaches.
Exactly.
I'm a weird person that has does things obsessively. So,
Feel you there.
so curious thoughts then are how the hell do you work up to 8 hours of endurance of having the ability to have that level of cardio, and then a humorous thought based on what we were just saying is that when people watch a fight from the audience, they see a 25-minute fight, and they have no idea what the hell's happening on ground fighting. They're clueless. There's a constant narrative of stand them up, stand them up, or
This fight sucks.
two guys that are amazing grapplers doing some technical things that I don't even know the language for, but I can finally grasp more or less what's going on.
Helps you watch the sport now too.
Yeah, I see a lot of things that I didn't see before, and I'm still learning very rapidly. So you have a lot to learn, but learning rapidly, see a lot of things I didn't see in the past. So I remember I was in the front row of like Francis Ngannou versus Cyril Gane, and people are complaining in the audience, and a guy behind me is literally saying, boring.
Like, get anywhere.
That's exactly what I thought.
There,
I'm like, maybe if this guy just came in there, well, both of them are a bit winded. If he just came in there
you could chop half their body apart and they'd still whip his ass.
I wonder if his heart rate would go up if he could just spend one round.
His heart rate would have gone up the second that his foot just grazed across the canvas, and you realize, this is it.
Yeah.
I'm dead.
Yeah. So that's a very different experience. I think a lot of people don't understand the intensity of your profession, how you spent your years as a professional fighter, the intensity of what goes on in there, and like the extraordinary skill set and cardio and the interplay of that. And after you just had a serious weight cut, your diet's not optimal. You might have traveled to be somewhere at a different continent.
Jet-lagged.
You might be jet lagged. Your diet's not optimal. You're rehydrating from the day before from weigh-ins. You had to spend, in many cases, more than a decade of training of martial arts experience to be in there. A lot of people have 20, 30 years experience. And there's a lot going on there, and then some
dude
somebody's yelling,
tells you suck, and that you're tired, you bum, and and the funny thing is, you wish that you could get these guys and not even beat them up, right? Like, I know that we're professional fighters, you can't just go beat people up. I get it, but I wish I could take them to the gym and be like, you have to do just 10 kicks on each side with the Thai pads. Mm-hmm. That's it. And then I'm going to make you sprint down and back and forth in the gym, and then you got to wrestle somebody. It's like, I want these guys to just feel it one time, to feel how exhausting grappling is. And
they didn't even get punched or kicked themselves yet. You just said wrestle.
Nobody's even hitting you. Then you add the stress of that, and that's what people forget, right? That it's exhausting when somebody is trying to knock you out, right? You're in there. Defense is exhausting unless you're really good at it, which is where you see these guys like Malignaggi and Floyd Mayweather. That's why they're so good too, is because it's not even just the offense, but to have that slick head movement and to be able to do that relaxed is a skill. It's the same in MMA. To be able to keep that composure under pressure of somebody trying to knock you out or take you down is stressful. By the time you even get into the octagon, your heart rate's probably in zone, for anybody that knows zones, it's probably at least in zone 3. So you're already almost getting tired. So it drives me nuts. People should have to do one jiu-jitsu class if they're going to at least yell that you're a bum from the crowd. If you want to just be a fan, you don't have to take any jiu-jitsu classes. But if you want to talk crap in the crowd, you should be selected right from the crowd and put into a gym in the back, and then you get to grapple. You can grapple your other bum friends, but you still got to grapple.
There's this old show, I think it was called Bully Beatdown back in the day.
I remember that show. I used to watch it all the time.
my homie Jake Shields was on that show.
yeah.
I think he might have been in twice. I think he might have been. He's at
Yeah,
least one
Eddie
season.
Alvarez was on it a few times.
Was he?
Andre Arlovsky was on that
Oh,
show.
was
Dude,
he?
there were some big names on that show, and they beat the crap out of some people.
Michelle Watterson had an episode. Yeah. So Michelle smacked around a girl on there. That's a fun thing for the naysayers.
That show needs to come back.
If they're going to call you a bum, they need to bring that show back.
Yeah, right. And you could just go in there and kick.
There's a context where even now that that's not your primary career anymore.
Still kick
That
their ass.
you could come in as a retired guy and still beat them up.
I'll be like, look, I just did a 112-mile bike ride, and I'll still beat the brakes off of you. I said that to a couple guys recently. I'm like, you guys, like, I'm not a boastful guy. I don't walk around arrogant. I'm pretty tempered in that regard. Don't forget that I can if you're thinking, I wonder, no, you probably not. Like, if you're just a regular guy off the couch, you're not beating any of these guys. You're not beating 99% of the women. They're going to choke these guys out.
Yeah.
But I think it's just men's mentality, right? They can't even help themselves. They got to think, I don't know. I'll bet if I swung really hard, I'd get them. No, you wouldn't.
No, I think that's a useful insight and a humorous one, but also logically true. That there's a lot of guys that it's a normative thing for a man to have a thought in his head that I could be tough if I had
And
to
that's
be.
okay. And you should think those things, but be realistic with yourself and don't be an a-hole about it. That's all.
But imagine the things. Imagine in your profession, somebody watching this. Imagine in your profession that your best level skill set, something you've been doing for 5, 10, 20 years, is the thing that you're best at. Right? And you think, imagine then that some other guy has been, as Paul has been training. How old were you when you first started training?
12.
MMA?
Well, martial arts, 12 years old.
So 25 years.
Yeah, I've been training. Yeah, 12 years old, Taekwondo, then started doing kickboxing in college and MMA. And
So a guy that's got
38.
25 years experience and has done that at the highest levels of his weight division, no, you can't.
In your face. Right in your face. I think about that too. I do daydream about it. Like if a guy just stepped up and he's like, I'm at shitsprayer679 on Twitter, I would just be like, boof, front kick, Tony Ferguson, Michael Chandler style, right up the middle, take you out. I do daydream about it. Just poof. And then I go to jail, of course. But at least in my dreams, I don't. I could just.
We've come to an
And
important.
then I catch him as he fell. Like, I'm sorry, shit sprayer.
We've come to an important moment in life where it's become clear to both of us that we need to find a way to bring back bully beatdown.
Yeah, there we go. That's our project.
That's your call.
We know enough guys. I mean, that show we just need to get somebody to find a way legally that these people sign that contract that they don't sue anybody.
It could literally be the same people that were on the original version, the same pro fighters of.
Yeah, we could bring those guys are all either still fighting or have just retired within the last 5 years.
We could bring Jake Shields back. I know Andre. Andre was just with me 2 weeks ago. We can bring Andre back. I know
Michael
Michelle
Chandler
Watterson.
beat somebody up.
So all the people, the original cast, they're even if they're retired, they can still beat your ass.
Yeah. Oh, man,
So,
that would be a fun show.
I think we have a new call in. We got a new project to work on.
Pros
together.
versus trolls.
Back to this internet culture that we've been discussing from different perspectives. There's a lot of information out there that leads a person to believe that they could engage in mediocre behaviors and somehow have magical, exceptional outcomes.
Yeah.
And that's not been my experience in life. The things that worked best for me are things that I focused on for a sustained period of time. And I did research or work. I did things that other people were too stupid or too lazy or both to do to build competitive advantages, to build skill sets that I could get outcomes that other people simply weren't getting.
Right.
I know you did that in your life. That in your previous career, or even now, that you're looking for advantages in triathlons.
Yeah.
Like, what's necessary. You're going to put in the work, and you're looking for those little micro advantages of what's it's not a 1% improvement, but the little tiny fractional improvements that cumulatively make a big difference.
Yeah.
What would you say to somebody out there that they are dedicated, they want to have high quality outcomes, but they got a little bit of that fog or nonsense in their head that you could you could do mediocre stuff and have exceptional outcomes. What would you say to help clarify a path for someone suffering that delusion at the moment?
Yeah, I would say that you got to remember why you're doing it and what your goal is, right? That's something to keep resetting, I think, all the time, right? Why am I doing this? What do I want? And if mediocrity is it, then that's fine to make those decisions. But if you're already thinking in your head, well, I could do it this way or I could do it this way, it's probably that way, right? If you already thought that if you know there's an A side and a B side, then you should probably choose the one that's gonna be harder but more beneficial over time. And I think remembering that it's okay to have setbacks and things like that too, and that you're not gonna have a good day every day, and that's not a reason to stop. Especially coming from sports, right? Whatever sport it is, that is blatantly obvious for us. It's different for people in business and things like that. You might not feel it in the same way. I know when I've had a bad day because I feel like I've been beat to crap. Or in triathlon, you're just, we call it bonking. You just get on the bike, you're supposed to hit certain numbers, and it's just not in your legs that day. But you get through it and you move on. You can't think about that going into the next day, because the next day you could have the best ride of your life. And the only day that matters is either the race in MMA, the fight. You're going to have a million bad days on the way to that. It's the same in any venture, whether it be you're trying to be an entrepreneur and start a business, or you're working for a company and you want to get to a better spot, but it's just not happening. Or maybe your boss craps on you one day and you think, oh, I'm screwed. But you got to have a long haul mentality if you want to really get to the top of anything, I think, in life.
In the last 3 days in the stock market, I'm down about 2.1 million.
Yes.
And I'm not delighted about that, but my moods are very stable. My moods are actually quite stable all the time. I don't have like these low lows, these depressive low that some people do. And there's single days that I've been up 2.5 million in a day, and I'm a little cocky about it, but I'm not super cocky about that. And I'm also not depressed when things go the other way. I think about, what would be the likely outcome, or what would be the mathematically probable outcome of over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years.
Right.
And I think about that that midterm time horizon. I don't know what the hell is going to happen on any particular day in the market. And somebody that pretends to it's an absurd thought.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know exactly what's going to happen that day. But I don't give a shit what happens on any particular day. If I'm up, that's nice, and if I'm down, that's unfortunate. But I kind of had this thought in my head. You mentioned entrepreneurship. I had this thought in my head I made my first entrepreneurial money when I was 7. Forever. I had my first paper route when I was 10. When I was 11, I had 4 paper routes. By that time, that was my first managerial position. I didn't do any of them. So by age 11, I was managing people, and I kind of spent my life doing that. So I had this thought in my head, at least in my early 20s, that if the market's going good, that's nice, keep working.
Yeah.
If the market's going shit, well, that's unfortunate, keep working.
Yep.
If the market's neutral, keep working.
Yeah.
And you just go advance the goals.
Yeah.
What are the main things that you could focus on today that would make tomorrow better, and then then you can compound those gains over time. And I think I know how you're going to answer this question, but maybe I'll just get a commentary from you. But a thought that I've had, recently is two thoughts, similar but different. Thought A, when a person's making 80, 90% effort, that's still really shit. They might be thinking they're doing above average. Well, I'm doing more than the other guys are doing, so okay, that's a good ticket to upper middle class, but it's not going to be notable success in any area.
Right.
You might make twice the salary that a bum makes, but is that the best you could have done?
Yeah.
And I've thought that if a person really gives 100%, to their training, to their craft, to whatever their endeavor in life is, if you really gave 100%, not fake 100%, if you really gave 100%, that means you should be more capable tomorrow. That to give 100% tomorrow is actually a higher level effort than 100% was yesterday.
Yeah.
Because you've developed more endurance, or a new insight, or a new skill, or something. Something happened yesterday that you can do even better the next day.
Yeah.
And you can do even better the next day. And the compounding of those little gains over time is, it turns into exponentiality. And if you were to graph that or think about it on a nerdy chart. Second thought, and so hold that first thought in your head. Second thought, you mentioned earlier you got coaches and trainers. You've been a pro athlete for a long time.
Yeah.
Now you're starting a new thing that's a hobby. and you still go get professionals that are, high level guys for
Yeah.
So I think that's we'll play with those two thoughts together. Is that I get coaches and trainers. Anything new that I want to learn, I want to find the best people in the world.
100%.
I want the best people in the world, and I need to find a way. It's not enough to say I want the best guy in the world to stop what he's doing and come help my dumb ass.
Yeah.
It's,
That's not
I
going
got
to
to think to how can I make myself useful to that person? Because money's not even enough for a lot of those people. Money is not enough. They got enough money, or they got other places to make money. That money helps, but if they didn't like your personality, or if you showed up half-assed, they don't have time to deal with a half-assed person. So I think that separate thought. Maybe I should have done these separately, but we're doing them together. Separate thought related to that is like, even if you've been doing something, if you had coaches, trainers, mentors for 10, 20 years, even if you're best in the world at something, the guys that are best in the world still have coaches and trainers and mentors and great training partners.
Yeah.
Especially those guys have, for sure. What's the probability that the next world champion at UFC is going to have great coaches, trainers, mentors, training partners?
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
100%. So there's people out there that think that maybe they graduated college, so they made it.
Yeah.
So now they're going to do their own thing. Or maybe they went to grad school, so now they think they made it, so they're going to do their own thing. And that's cool. I went to grad school. I went to the #1 ranked business school in our country, out of 416 at the time. Guess what? I still talk to other people about business all the time.
Yeah.
I still got coaches and trainers and mentors for MMA or any other thing that I want to take on.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts about those combinations of, even after you've been doing something at a high level for 20 years, you still got coaches and mentors.
Yeah.
And you still got to give 100%.
I reached out, like I said, for this new stuff that I'm obsessed with in racing these tries. I reached out to literally the top 3 guy in the world, this Canadian guy, Lionel. And luckily for me, he was into MMA. We had a nice conversation about it, and he gave me his coach's information. That's who I hired to be my coach. And that's who I have a great relationship with now, too. It's this guy, David Tilbury Davis, who's this English triathlon coach. And you always have to surround yourself with the people that are going to put you in the right direction. And I'm not saying, I've still got friends that are from high school, this and that, but I have other new people around me that are going to help me in wherever I need to. And those are the people I become friends with. You seek out people that are like-minded, I think is a really big, important thing, right? I was just hanging out this weekend in LA with that guy. We were racing the same relay race together. And I got to see how he eats, sleeps, trains, does the sport. Lived with him. We shared an Airbnb with his wife, the videographer that works for him. And you get to see, okay, I don't care how some guy that picked it up as a hobby like me does it. I want to know how the baddest dude in the world does it, or the top tier guys. I want to know how they do it. And I think those are the people you have to be looking for in anything that you're trying to do. I don't care what it is. Those are the people. Hiring Jake Shields, hiring Paulie Malignaggi, trying to learn from the absolute best. It's going to be the fast track to learning it quicker and more efficiently too.
You know Jake well? I know you know of him for a number of years.
Just through watching his career. I've met him a bunch of times too, and I've seen him in Extreme and things like that. But just watching him career-wise.
Jake stays at my place. 3 days every 4 weeks. I've been doing that for months and months. And you know what Jake does in his spare time when we're not training together? Jake is he's 43 years old right now. He's a few months older than me. Jake still watches jiu-jitsu videos.
Yeah.
If he's just sitting around my living room.
He's obsessed.
He's on his laptop and he's watching, jiu-jitsu.
It's his life.
And he's one of the best guys at that.
Yeah, that's for sure.
But he's still watching jiu-jitsu videos in his 40s.
Because you can't think, I know it now. And we used to learn this even from way back doing Taekwondo, and anybody that's done jiu-jitsu or karate. When you get your black belt, a lot of kids or even adults, it's like, that's it. Take the picture, I got my belt. It's like, you misunderstood it the whole time, if that's how you think, right? You got one of those achievements. That was your first thing. Then there's second dan, third dan. Then you can get the coral belt if you're an old head in jiu-jitsu. There's always a level up, right? Until you're dead.
It seems about once a month, every 4 or 6 weeks, he takes a trip and he'll be training with John Danaher and GSP.
New York or up in Canada.
They're down in Texas now, but I know Danaher was in New York back in the day. I'm aware of that. But yeah, what's his name? Gordon Ryan's down there. Gary Tonen's down there.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot they did take it down to Texas.
GSP goes down there, and so he's down there training with those guys. That's what he does for fun,
Yeah, he goes and trains with a bunch of savages.
Yeah.
John Danaher's an interesting guy. He
I
wears
look forward to meeting him.
His tights, his spats to like everywhere. I think I saw him at a wedding one time, and I wasn't there. I saw pictures of the wedding, but he wore like his rash guard that had like a tuxedo thing on it. Always wearing talk about being ready to go at all times.
I guess he is. Shout out to John Danaher. I'll see you soon.
Yeah, your rash guards.
I think I see him in a month or so. I've met Gary Tonen and Gordon Ryan that trained with him, and I've done interviews and spent a bit of time with them. But I haven't spent time with Danaher yet. To look forward to meeting him.
Yeah, I think that'll be a good chat.
Yeah, I know he's a very smart guy.
Very smart and just
detailed, yeah. In recent years, you've been sharing some of the details of your life of through your commentary and calling fights, and that's a lot more detailed job than a lot of people know that it is. I think that I know your homie John Anik and Bisbing I spent some time with. A lot of respect for both of those guys, and there's a lot of detail and prep that goes into that. You can't just sit down and say some random shit during the.
No.
What does that look like? What does that system look like for you, or how much effort is that after knowing a lot of these people in real life and being around that sport for forever, you still have to do a lot of prep. What's that look like?
Yeah, so it starts. We'll get all the information, the basic information, the bios that these fighters all fill out, which is it's like super preliminary kind of work, and then. We do fighter meetings each week. We'll do it like on Wednesday before we arrive for the fight, the actual event. And we sit down with anywhere like 12 to 15 different athletes. And it's all based on kind of who we haven't spoken to in a while. If you're making your debut, we almost certainly are going to sit down with you, especially in today's world where people are kind of dropping off of cards like crazy, right? Whether it's due to illness, injury, whatever it is. We got a lot of debut people that you might be able to only, one video online that you can watch. So sitting down with them, getting to know them, actually picking their brain and talking to them, seeing how they operate as a fighter is one of the major things that we do, and you get a lot out of that. And then just tons of watching tape. I like to watch their last 2 fights at least, sit through, I make notes, we have their attribute sheets, we'll go through all that. And just using your own experience too is a big part of it too. If I wasn't a fighter, obviously it's gonna be more difficult to talk about this kind of stuff, but I know what they're going through, right? I think that's why it's important for the color commentary at the highest level in the UFC is that we have athletes that are able to speak and be well-spoken and appear on television, because there's something about actually having been through that, to be in the octagon, to know exactly what that feeling in their gut is right before they take that fight. Like, I know what is going through all of their minds. DC knows, Michael knows. So I think that's a crucial part of it as well, but tons of tape study and lots of notes and things like that. But the fighter meetings are where you really get to know them more psychologically, and that's always fun to see.
So in other television type endeavors, I know you have a bit of an acting background, and you're involved in a documentary coming up.
Yeah, so I'm working with the Professional Triathlon Organization. We're filming this sort of documentary piece, basically on my journey from being an elite fighter and then trying to be as an elite of a triathlete as I can, meeting Lionel Sanders, who's one of the greatest in the world at the sport, and kind of how we've become pretty good friends at this point. I mean, guys from totally different parts of the world, totally different sports, but bonded through an appreciation for each other's sport. Huge MMA fan on his side, and then I've obviously become a huge fan of his sport. And obviously Hacks Season 2 is out. HBO Max, I get a nice episode appearance in that. If you're a UFC fan in particular, and you're a fan of that show, I think it's brilliant. I think it's a great show, and I'm just trying to do more of that as well. Get back into the acting scene. I went to school for acting, so I think at this point in my life, it's a good time to kind of dive back into that performing side of things.
I don't know, anything you do, I know you'll do it at a high level.
Yeah, right.
You can't help yourself.
0 to 100, yeah.
A final thought that I've asked everybody that's a high-level performer or world champions in their craft. You ever seen anybody? They all give me the exact same 70 people maybe from various sports. All give me the exact same answer, so no pressure. But You ever see anybody that had, one of those championship belts or a Super Bowl ring or maybe an Olympic gold medal or some trophy held high above their head and that universal sign of victory? You ever seen anybody like that didn't have a great coach, great mentor, great teammates around them?
No, I haven't. It's important to seek out those kind of people and have those people, because raw talent and things like that are only get you so far, right? You've got to have people around you that are same goal in mind, I think. So I think seeking out the right, and it's true. I mean, it's just a fact, right? It doesn't, you can only go so far on your own in any endeavor in your life. So I know I've had some freaking amazing coaches in my life throughout my MMA career. And even though you might, like I've been to a few different people throughout my career, but they've all been instrumental in getting to me to the elite level.
I couldn't have done the things that I did without having the right type of people around me. I grew up with a lot of the wrong type of people around me, and that's
same.
Informative.
Yeah,
that's informative that you see some anti-role models, if you will, or negative role models that you're like, well, that looks like a terrible idea. For sure, I'm not going to do that.
It doesn't seem like it works out. You go this way.
What was your childhood like?
Mine?
Yeah.
I grew up in the inner city in South Philly, so it was a little neighborhood, Grace Ferry, and it was pretty rough, actually. Early on, it was just typical, just inner city, like growing up, playing tackle football on basically blacktop streets and being an idiot like that. I remember we used to climb on the church roofs. We used to hop over those spiked fences, crawling under cars. I had grease all over me. I grew up in row homes. So just houses all stacked together one by one. I fist fought a lot. I grew up in there was a lot of turmoil too, race-wise in my neighborhood. The projects were there, and then there was Italian neighborhoods, there was Irish kids here, so everybody was always battling back and forth. A lot of drugs. Then I was lucky enough, my dad got a better job when I was 16, and we moved from the inner city just outside of the suburbs in Delaware County. Still very working class neighborhood, but a far cry from where I was growing up. And then I went to a different high school from there, and that's when I found acting. Started to train more martial arts when I went back to the city. And so it was pretty, we were very middle class at best when I was growing up.
I grew up, a lot of violence and violence in the house and violence outside of the house.
I was lucky. I had. God bless my parents that, my neighborhood was filled with a lot of that, a lot of broken homes, a lot of people that were going through a lot of abuse and things like that. But, I was very lucky to have a mom and a dad that were, I can't blame them for any of it, but around me was definitely rough.
I think it gave me a lot of motivation that, those moments that we spoke of earlier, that a normal person said, well, this is a good time for me to quit and go do something else.
Yeah.
So I think, some people might call that unhealthy, but I think it fueled that obsession for me that I'm going to get far away from this. And I got into that habit or practice so much, and then seeing good results from it that I think I've continued to that pattern.
Yeah.
That anything worth doing, if you're going to do something, do it well. And be very wise or choosy with the people you spend time around. That if you had the wrong influences in your life, I've seen that work out terribly for some people, and it would have worked out terribly for me if I didn't change my peer group over time.
Yeah.
So, hey, thanks very much for spending time. I appreciate it.
Of course.
You got plenty of things that you could do with your life, and enjoy it. I appreciate that you spend a bit of
It's a good
time
chat.
sharing some of your stories and wisdom with my clients and audience.
Of course. It was a pleasure, man. Thank you very much.
Paul.
Thanks for having me, man.
Great to meet you.
You watch this video all the way through, and that tells me you're dedicated to learning more and earning far above average outcomes in your life. Congratulations for that. But now it's time to take action. If you could have earned those results by yourself, you would have done it already. My head coach has opened up a few spots on his high-demand calendar for an in-person, one-on-one strategy session to help you. On this call, we'll give you pragmatic advice that you can implement tonight to get laser-focused on the right metrics and leave mediocrity far behind in your past. Click that link right now in the description below and apply for your call immediately. Do it now.